But Zach, you want to take a look at some of these pretty epic images that are coming out of the recent Bernie Sanders rallies in Los Angeles? Here's just a little bit of a slideshow for you guys. Can confirm this is the biggest Bernie Sanders rally ever. 36,000 people out here in Los Angeles right now. That's absolutely insane, guys. What a welcome for AOC. This is the overflow crowd in Utah, another recent rally in Utah.
Yeah, the Salt Lake City one I think is truly impressive. That is a deep red state, guys. That is a state. When was the last time you ever heard of Utah going blue, guys? When was the last time? I mean, did
Obama win Utah? I forget.
If he did, it was in 2008. I mean, I thought that Utah had always been a deep red state. It's been controlled by the Mormons. I mean, he definitely Mitt Romney definitely won Utah. I mean, I'm just saying, not to be.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? There's no way that Mitt Romney lost Utah.
I meant, McCain, but I wouldn't be surprised if Obama won it.
That's true, but it's still, that's almost 20 years ago, if you can believe
that's
it.
That's a while.
And to be turning out crowds like that, I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Sorry.
So no, anyway.
Yeah, we have a couple more here. Bernie says when it comes to standing up to Trumpism, there's no such thing as a red state. 20,000 people came out in Salt Lake City tonight to say no to oligarchy, no to authoritarianism, and no to massive tax breaks for billionaires. And here's an aerial view of the Bernie rally. This actually reminds me of that shot in the most recent Dune movie. I don't know if you guys remember it, but there's an epic aerial shot of Paul Atreides walking through a massive crowd, and it looks almost exactly like this. So there's a little bit of nice symbolism. And then here's someone who speculates, Zach, he's running. I want to talk more about that in a second. Here's Brian Krasenstein saying it's a movement. AOC moments ago in Salt Lake City, Utah. Trump could never generate this excitement. The tides are turning. Again, these are all within like the last 48 hours. This is noteworthy, Zach. Bernie referring to AOC as his daughter. He says, I want to say a word about my daughter. I want to say a word about Alexandria and why what she's doing is important. Random person in the crowd says, our future president. I have another piece to add on that in a second. Here's Faz Shakir saying Salt Lake City coming out in crazy numbers tonight. This is just the overflow with thousands out here. 15K once we get inside this arena. And if you guys aren't familiar, Faz Shakir was the campaign chair for Bernie last, or not the campaign chair, but the head of the Bernie's 2020 campaign
manager.
Yeah, his campaign manager. Here's Maxwell Frost. What a night! Bring the message everywhere, Bernie. This was him at Coachella. Something else that happened. Bernie popping up at Coachella. So I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. I think this is a great way to put it from Populism Updates. He's running the best campaign of his life 3 years before a presidential primary when he'll be 86 years old. And I think that's so true, Zach. Bernie is literally in the midst of running the best campaign of his life, and there's not even a campaign going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane. And I think the big part of it is that he's not running a presidential campaign. I think that's what makes this so unique. This is one of the rare moments in political history where it's not about a certain politician's goals. It's not about anybody's aspirations. It's not about anything that's going to put Bernie in the history books outside of just him being the leader of this movement. It's not as if he's climbing a ladder or stepping on a stone to move forward. And that's what really frustrates me about this, like, manufactured backlash from individuals on the left that try and act like this is anything other than like a spectacular benefit for the American people, because he is not doing this for a presidential run. I think the one thing I'll take Bernie Sanders at his word for, and you kind of touched on it earlier when you were going through that slideshow, is the fact that he is kind of teeing up Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to be his heir. I don't think Bernie is going to run in 2028. I think he knows he's too old, but I am starting to feel like maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to run in that goddamn Democratic primary. I was big on the podcast. I pushed back on Gavin when he was suggesting she might run for president. And I thought, no, I think it's safe to assume that she's going to run for Chuck Schumer's Senate seat. Now I'm not so sure. When I saw him raise her hand and the crowd cheers and they say, future president, wow! It is very hard to turn away from that kind of momentum. And guys, I've been critical of different things that AOC has done throughout her career, right? I'm not a simp for AOC. I'm not a AOC stan guy, right? I think she is by and large one of the best Congress people we have. And clearly the country is with her. Griffin pointed out over on Breaking Points in the immediate aftermath and spoke to people, right? Talking about how there was a tremendous crossover between people in New York City and people who voted for Donald Trump. She has that anti-establishment ethos that I think a lot of people were surprised to discover at that time. And I think if she can capitalize on that and really thread the needle and be like, I'm with Bernie, I'm with everybody, I'm with the working class. Let's unite. Let's overthrow these oligarchs. Man, gonna be hard to say no to that message. I'll be a cheerleader for that.
I totally agree. Here's my only concern, Zach. Because I agree with what you said about the New York thing. Do you think that appeal, that kind of cross aisle appeal, Trump voters voting for AOC, do you think that would exist in a place that's not like a New York City? Like, do you think that would exist in the heartland of this country, or are people too fucking racist, sexist, or what? Do you think that would translate?
It's an interesting question, right? Right now, I think that it would be wrong and honestly it would be kind of dishonest for me to come out here and be like, there is no racial prejudice against women that run for president. Like there's no racial prejudice, there's no gender prejudice. There is the deck. Yeah, the deck is stacked against you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that has to be a takeaway that we all weigh into our analysis. However, I do feel like, and this is something that I want to get into when we react to the Tim Dillon, Megyn Kelly clip, because one of the tactics that the right wing often uses to make it seem like, the Republicans represent the working class and the Democrats are out of touch, only is effective if you have people like Barack Obama running. It's only effective if you have people like Pete Buttigieg running. It's only effective if you have Joe Biden's running, where you can really portray them as out of touch elites. I think the one thing that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has really going for her is that she still does have a working class base. And I know it is mostly due to the fact that she's running in New York City. I think that did have a certain impact. She's very embedded and very beloved by the Puerto Rican community. That's something that she's always taken very seriously in her district. But I do think that if you're speaking to 20,000 people in Utah, like those are working class people that believe in you. They believe that you're fighting with them. And I think she could overcome it.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be really interesting to see how many people just AOC could get to come out to one of these rallies, because I totally agree with you, but I really hope that she can survive on her own without Bernie, if in fact he is being, he is setting her up for that. I do kind of disagree with you, Zach, that he's not going to run in 2028.
Oh, you think he will?
I think he is going to run, unless obviously something happens with his health, right, or his medical status that we can't foresee. The guy is getting very old. Obviously cognitive decline. Sometimes it comes at old people quicker than even they realize, right? It'll be like 1 year they're fine, the next year they're clearly, not as all there, right? But like my grandfather is 88, no signs of slowing down.
Charlie's everywhere.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Bernie is 82, 83 right now. Like I'm not saying it's like ideal, but do I think he could pull it off? Absolutely. Also, just a little bit more proof, guys, that AOC is clearly being set up as the successor, at least in my opinion. I mean, just take a look at this, guys. Obviously, they have upcoming stops, but let's take a look at the previous stops. Special guest, AOC. 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 You know what I'm saying? Like, it's pretty clear, guys. Every single one of his last 7 or 8 events has featured AOC on the Fighting in the Oligarchy tour. So I mean, who the fuck else is it going to be, Zach? It's clearly AOC.
100%. And if Bernie does run, I think that as a VP pick, AOC is a lock. I think that she makes so much sense because she is youthful. She represents the future. Guys, AOC was only 28 years old when she ran for Congress. She's 35 now. It was 7 years ago that she got elected in 2018. Pretty crazy stuff. So she still definitely represents the younger half of the country. I think Gavin, what'd you tell me yesterday? The average American's 36 or something like that, 34. That, yeah. And to bring home the point I was making about her relating to working class people, this is the kind of stuff that I think is going to really get the job done for her. This is her, at her best, in my view.
And you know what, Utah? That is the story that Republicans mock. Not mine, but all of ours, when they say that a waitress or working person is unqualified to serve in Congress. But the fact is, many of us are far more qualified to know what real life is actually like than any of them ever will. And I tell this story not because it is special, but because of how common and normal it is. While the details may differ, so many of us know what it feels like for life to be one bad day, one bad piece of news, one major setback, from everything feeling like it's going to fall apart. And we don't have to live like this anymore, Utah. We can make a new world, a better country, where we can fight for the dignity of all people. And it looks like living wages, Utah. It looks like stable housing, Utah. It looks like guaranteed health care, Salt Lake City. And it looks like respect for all of our differences, no matter who we are or where we come from. Oligarchy or democracy. And we are here today because we choose democracy. We choose freedom.
And I think that is AOC when AOC is being herself. And I think that's when she's at her most powerful. I think one of the things that started to really disappoint me in the Biden era was it felt like a lot of these progressives didn't have their own identity at that time. They were really trying to figure out how do they position themselves? How do they manage to, be a Democrat in this time, but also to be the progressive flank? And it just fills me with a lot of joy to see AOC back out there making a case that I know she wants to be making. I know that she believes in, and she doesn't have to try and be anybody else. She's out there being herself. And I think that she's, one of the true future leaders of the left. I really do. And I started to be skeptical about that for a while. But after watching her go on these tours with Bernie Sanders, every single one after the other, as Gavin pointed out, I mean, she really is showing up and she's meeting the moment.
Yeah, she absolutely is. She's a great communicator. She's doing a great job getting the crowd excited. Before we take a look at this Coachella clip, Zach, which I'm super excited, I think it's also great that AOC, one of the things she said at the end of that clip is like really framing this as oligarchy versus democracy, right? And I think that, obviously the Democrats tried their best to warn people about the threat that Donald Trump represented to democracy. But I think that the way AOC and Bernie are framing it is even better by talking more about more about the descent into oligarchy than the erosion of democracy. Because people don't really feel like democracy has helped them very much. They're like, when the fuck has my vote ever helped me? I voted for Bernie Sanders. The Democrats screwed him. I voted for this person, but my district was too gerrymandered, right? To most people, democracy is kind of like it's a nice concept, but have they actually really seen it improve their lives? Probably not. So do they really care that much about protecting it? I don't know. But they don't want to become an oligarchy. That sounds scary. That sounds bad. And Bernie's 100% vindicated because this is something he's been talking about his entire career, Zach. You mentioned some of the Bernie haters.
I saw exactly what you're about to play.
Some people think that, Bernie's consistency on this issue is actually somehow a gotcha, right? Like this is somehow, something to make fun of. So let's take a look over here. Our friends over at the Revolutionary Blackout Network, not doing so well these days. It doesn't seem like there's much of an audience for this brand of idiocy online, luckily on the left anymore. But yeah, do you understand Bernie's job? Yeah, this is somehow a jab because of how consistent this man has been and how he's been basically predicting the future since at least 93.
This great country of ours is moving very rapidly in the direction of oligarchy. The United States of America today is increasingly becoming an oligarchy. More and more moving toward an oligarchy. We are moving in the direction of oligarchy. We will move even more rapidly in the direction of an oligarchy. This great country is evolving into an oligarchic society. It is called oligarchy, and that is the system we are rapidly moving toward. This is a budget that moves our country rapidly into the direction of oligarchy. A handful of billionaires are moving this entire planet toward an oligarchic society.
And by the way, I'll just say back in 93, that was like around the time, that Clinton really did start moving this country towards an oligarchy. So Bernie was right. He has been right. And now he's vindicated beyond belief. I don't even think he could believe how vindicated he's become.
Oh, 100%. And I guarantee you could go back and find clips of him in the 1980s. He might not have been using the word oligarchy, but very much advocating for more democracy, more workers' rights. I mean, guys, this is a man who has for his entire life been on the right side of history when it comes to domestic worker issues, when it comes to advocating for working people in America, family kitchen table issues. He's never once had a misstep when it comes to a domestic policy discussion. And that goes a long way with people. And it's why I've been just so really pissed off, guys, by this effort on the left to try and pour water on Bernie Sanders, because they're the least helpful thing, guys. And I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? And I want to say, you know, a lot of people who maybe aren't putting this out for a living, but people who are feeding off of it, right? People who are, I agree with that. I was disappointed by Bernie Sanders. Like Bernie Sanders, you know, I want, well, let me tell you this. Let me speak from the heart for a second. I also harbored a lot of resentment against Bernie Sanders at one point. I also was like, what the fuck, dude? Come on. Joe Biden, he's not your friend. He's not my friend. What the fuck are we doing here? Right? But at the end of the day, Bernie is playing the long game. He's playing his cards strategically, and it makes zero goddamn sense. Zero goddamn sense to pick the guy that you have 85% agreement with, who is inspiring truckloads of people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands across the United States, guys, to come out and rally against the oligarchy, right? Something we all oppose. Somebody who is encouraging people to not give up, to not be despondent, to not just give in to nihilism, to not just go shop away on Temu and forget that the world is crumbling. No, get out, do something about it. I believe in you. Bernie Sanders had everybody chanting, Bernie, Bernie. And he says, no, not Bernie, you guys, you're the future. Okay, I beat this analogy to death, but I really believe it, and I think it is coming more to fruition. Guys, we are in the death zone on an 8,000 meter peak, okay? Your body is slowly dying. There's no oxygen coming in. You can't eat. You can't sleep. You can't do anything. All you can do is either climb the mountain and get back down, right? Bernie Sanders, he's a Sherpa for all of us, all right? He's carrying the load. He's been doing it a long time. He's been up the mountain. He knows the game. He's shaking you. He says, God damn it, bro. You cannot fall asleep. If you curl up in your coat and you say good night, guess what? You're never waking back up again. This is the moment that the rubber meets the road. You have to put one boot in front of the other boot. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help carry your load and get you down the mountain. Okay, but you got to stay with me. You got to look me in the eyes. You got to fight with me. I will go to every single fucking city I have to, right? I'm a Vermont senator. I'm going to get reelected until I die. I don't care. I will still go out there and travel and, you know, use every ounce of platform that I have to make the case against oligarchy, because I believe in this country and I believe in the people who live in it. How the fuck are you going to try and besmirch that guy? How the fuck are you going to be like, you know what? The left really needs to move on from Bernie Sanders. That current affairs article was so stupid. Why would we move on from the guy that's working? Why would we move on for the guy that's making us popular? The guy who has a track record going back 50 fucking years of being on our team. Why would we ignore that guy? You have to want to lose to do that.
Well, luckily, Zach, I have some good news for you, and that's that no one reads current affairs.
True.
And that the people you're talking about represent a comically, you know, irrelevant faction of the left, even online at this point, in my opinion. Although I totally share your passion, your frustration against them, I don't think it's even worth getting worked up about. It's almost a non-existent, you know, faction. But I totally agree with your assessment of Bernie Sanders. And I also think it's super important because obviously Trump and his administration, they came in guns blazing. They wanted to act like, oh, we have the right to do all of this insane shit because of this mandate, right? We were elected on the popular vote. People want this. People like this. People love it. Well, guess who's out here fucking amassing crowd sizes that even Donald Trump could not dream of against the status quo that Donald Trump now represents? It's Bernie Sanders. It's the opposition. So it really makes it harder for Trump to maintain this illusion that the people are on his side, that the new status quo is somehow popular, because Bernie's proving that it's not. Even during a non-election year, he's amassing the public out in, you know, these giant rallies. Like I said, that was Trump's thing. So he's stealing Trump's thing, these rallies, the crowds, right? Obviously, Bernie's always had his crowds, but Trump would famously continue doing his rallies even when there wasn't an election going on. So now Bernie's like, yeah, I'm doing that now. I'm taking that mantle. The people are behind me now. We're the resistance. This is the revolution, and we're coming for your fucking ass, which I think is going to make it a lot harder for Trump to try to actually shut down democracy if he wants to in 2028. I'm not saying it won't happen, but it's going to be a lot harder to make that happen against someone who actually does have a mass movement behind them, than if it was just like some loser fucking, Pete Buttigieg type with like 10 neoliberal, wine moms behind him, right? If the whole country wants Bernie, if the whole mood of the country is like pro Bernie, anti Trump, much like it was pro Obama, anti Bush back in 2008, it's going to be a lot harder for Trump to pull off what he wants to pull off. Again, not saying it won't happen, but it's going to be a lot harder to engineer that vibe shift and to just force everyone into line.
Oh, yeah. I don't think you can undersell or understate how much it bothers Donald Trump that Bernie is crushing the crowd sizes. Like, Donald Trump cannot just go to, Colorado and get a size crowd of 36,000 people right now. And I also think he might even be afraid to after the assassination attempt. I don't think he wants to do it anymore. I think that one bullet that almost hit him may have spared all of us some of the victory lap, antics of Donald Trump. But I do have this clip of Bernie making his surprise appearance at Coachella. I got to give a shout out to good friend of the show, Griffin. He was out at the LA rally all day, and I kept seeing him on Instagram making jokes that it was like Bernie Cella over there. He's like, it's like Coachella, AOC Cella over here. And then by a fucking miracle coincidence, Bernie Sanders actually shows up at Coachella that night to introduce Claro. Pretty legendary. Do you have anything to add?
Completely unexpected too. From what I'm understanding, it's not like Bernie was like on the freaking Coachella schedule as someone who would be popping out. Like, he just kind of showed up. I'm not sure who worked this out. I'm not sure who made it happen. But shout out to that person, because what a great sight. Again, an entire massive crowd of young people all cheering, all on board with every word that he's saying. It's really glorious shit. Plus, I've seen so many hilarious jokes about, like, imagine you're tripping Molly out in the desert and out comes Bernie Sanders. Again, Dune vibes. But either way.
Yeah. And you know what? I've been critical of Maxwell Frost. He did put out this really cool piece of propaganda where he was crushing it on the drum kit at Coachella. So I forgive him of any wrongdoings.
Look, I'm not going to be long, but this is what I want to say. This country faces some very difficult challenges. And the future of what happens to America is dependent upon your generation. Now, you can turn away and you can ignore what goes on, but if you do that, you do it at your own peril. We need you to stand up to fight for justice. To fight for economic justice, social justice, and racial justice.
So, not a super long speech, but it was very exciting that he popped out and did that. And again, Bernie always taking the time to stay relevant with the youngest generation, right? Bernie Sanders connected with us when he was 70 years old, and we were 17 years old, and now he's 82 years old and he's connecting with the next generation of Zoomers. I felt old because all of the people that I knew that were playing at Coachella were the clear legacy acts. Like, obviously Lady Gaga, we know, but a lot of the other people that were headlining, I was like, man, I am old. I'm out of touch. I'm a loser. All right. I am a boomer now when it comes to this. And then it was a bummer too, because Missy Elliott apparently had a really whack crowd. Nobody knew who Missy Elliott was. I was like, damn, that's the kind of shit that would throw me back to my childhood. I saw Missy Elliott and Nas one time. That was a legendary show. Also, 3 6 Mafia got completely.
Kind of reminds me of when we were at Pitchfork, and like it kind of seemed like no one knew who Animal Collective was.
Right,
and it was like 10, 15 years ago. This would have been huge, guys. But like everyone was like, huh? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir.